A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Spectrum Extra when we review the major events of the week. But today we chose to focus a little bit on the 2026 electoral roadmap and the key issues of concern. Well, the clock is ticking towards the 2026 general elections, and we can see a number of things happening. Now, this week, there was a beehive of activity at the Electoral Commission, and we know it might continue even in the days to come, when several Ugandans actually turned up in their numbers to pick forms to express their interest to run for the office of the president. Now, there are so many young people who turned out there, to the extent that some people have suggested that all these could be jokers, but also we know there are some people who have ever vied for this position before who also turned up to pick these nomination documents. And it's part of that huge milestone on the electoral roadmap, because we know political parties have been busy identifying candidates to run for those different positions. So we'll be looking at that issue in detail to try and understand whether the presidency is being demystified or this could be jokers who are likely to fall off as the process continues. That aside, there are concerns about how the Electoral Commission is handling the electoral roadmap. There have been changes in dates, and some people have actually suggested that it is all part of the huge plan to sabotage the electoral process. And we are wondering, how can the Electoral Commission that is organizing the same process be the one sabotaging it? Some people actually think it could be also plans to rig the process. So we will be asking a question: why are these dates changing? What could be the problem? There are issues around the electoral register, and we have heard how some people have been saying that there is a political party which claims it has almost the same supporters like the total number of registered registered voters on the national voters register. So we'll be looking at the status of the national register, because it's a very important thing for the election process. There are also questions about what system are we going to use? Is it biometric? President Yoweri Museveni has been on record saying we must vote electronically to be able to deal with the problem of, ballot stuffing, people voting several times. So do we have enough biometric kits? Do we have a good system to actually conduct the elections using it? Do we need a law to regulate use of the electronic system? We'll be looking at that issue in concern. Of course, there are also issues about, the credibility of the Electoral Commission, with some people claiming it's a biased body, that it will always, support the person who actually put it in place. But we know it's a creature of the Constitution. Can the Electoral Commission change this notion, looking at how the process is going on? And then, of course, there's one big worry about the entire electoral process, and that's the issue of security and violence. There's been a lot of talk about it. So we'll be looking at how the Electoral Commission perceives these sentiments that are coming in from the different stakeholders, and whether it's providing any guidance to be able to avoid this phenomenon that has become so common with the electoral process. Of course, there will be time to also look at other key issues concerning the electoral process. The panel. At the moment in studio, we have Ms. Charity Kalebo. She's Executive Director, Election Laws Institute. She's a pundit on governance and electoral issues. She's also a seasoned election observer. Good evening. It's a pleasure having you on Spectrum Extra, Charity.
A very good evening, Kenneth, and to all our listeners, plus my fellow panelists. Happy as always to be here.
Thank you so much for honoring our invitation. Also in studio, Ms. Perry Aritua, Executive Director, Women Democracy Network, Uganda Chapter. She's also a pundit on governance and human rights issues, and also a seasoned election observer. I don't want to add something. At least Perry will slap me in studio.
No, I am a peaceful Ugandan.
I know you're a peaceful Ugandan, but if I say that thing, you're likely to get out of your skin and deal with me. It's a pleasure having you on Spectrum Extra, Perry.
Thank you, Kenneth. Good evening, listeners and viewers, and my fellow panelists.
Also in studio, we have the contender from Xtra municipality. Some people have suggested that he's a pretender. We don't know what will happen when the results actually come out. Mr. George Musisi, lawyer and member of the National Unity Platform Party, and he's running in Xtra municipality, still struggling to get the NUP ticket. How is it going,
Am I
Mr.
struggling?
Musisi? Well, what shall I
I'm
say?
struggling with who?
You have not yet been announced.
I'm struggling with who?
There must be a contender for that ticket.
No, who?
There's somebody, you know that person. There's a person running Xtra.
Well, I'm not struggling to get anything. I'm sure when the party looks around, it can't find a better person. Good evening to the listeners. Pleasure to be here as usual, Anderson. Stop attributing your opinions to other people. Some people think. So you say I, Anderson, think. but just to add on Perry's introduction, you should also add that she's a voter in Chira municipality.
She's a voter in Chira municipality.
See how he's campaigning. Voter targeting.
So he's
You
trying
have
to
to sway her
keep two
already.
birds with one stone.
So you people who stay in further constituencies, leave the people of Chira decide the rest of Chira. You can only be fans.
But the Perry that I know for some good years,
It's
rare for her to change.
secret ballot.
it's rare for her to change
But you
position.
even know how I vote. You don't know.
Where we will be sneaking and snooping on your ballot.
It is
You know we
secret.
have ever snooped on some minister's ballot. We shall snoop on your ballot.
All right. And of course, it's very important that we'll be discussing issues to do with the elections. And it seems you are all in the mood to talk about election-related issues. And you have a variety going by what I've seen so far. There are so many people who have come out to aspire for different positions, including parliamentary seats, local government seats. When you see the people who are turning up in huge numbers to contest for party tickets, you can just imagine what could be going on. What do you think is going on, Charity? What is this sudden interest, people contesting for electoral positions?
There's sudden interest, the numbers.
The numbers.
So before we came on air, we had a very interesting discussion on the regulations that changed and allowed for every Tom, Dick, Harry, I must call it like that, every Tom, Dick, Harry to go and pick nomination forms as long as you...
There also
you-
James. I've seen James Sarah.
As long as you have S6 qualification, you want to be a president of Uganda, and you were quiet, you were in your pad, we didn't know you existed. Suddenly you've picked nomination forms and the number has swelled to 100. First and foremost, on a serious note, I think that it's not good to demystify the presidency. To demystify, I mean to make it look like it is a pedestrian office.
To water it down.
Anybody can walk in there and do anything. Because the presidency is constitutionally provided for. And in its constitutional semblance, there is also a mandate therein. So the whole of Articles 98 and 99 are clear on what it means to be a president of the Republic of Uganda. Of course, it should also not be seclusive or selective, not to allow everybody to participate. Citizens should participate. But what quality of citizens are we talking about? Who can lead me? Now, for example, I wake up in the morning and I'm not going to use that word, I was about to use it, riffraff. I wake up and they are my president. Will I feel proud to still call myself a Ugandan? So I think that we will have to reconsider the methodology of who applies, who picks nomination forms. Of course, the qualifications are there. You should be S6. Once you have S6, you can be the president of Uganda, but maybe the threshold should soon end and we have a bit of experience. Even for a job, I cannot just wake up and become commissioner at Ashovia. I need to have had a certain legacy on myself to be a commissioner.
You remind me of people who were talking about how it's one of those conditions. You must have served in the army. You are not fit enough to be president. You know, there was that talk around when we were trying to discuss who should be the presidential candidates. Perry, what's your take about this sudden interest by so many people in the office of the presidency?
I think one is the law has enabled it because there was an amendment of the Presidential Elections Act in 2020, and Charity has explained the conditions. You have to be a registered voter. We know a registered voter is someone 18 years and above. You meet the conditions, you qualify. A level, it's equivalent, you know. So the conditions are very flimsy in my perspective, because I want to agree with Charity that this country has a number of problems, and it's not an office. The office of the president is not something that should be taken lightly, because the role that you have is majorly problem solving. Uganda's development issues are huge. You're dealing with a population that is largely young, that is largely dependent. You have a GDP that is mainly concentrated in a few districts, because mainly the urban, Kampala, Wakiso. Most of the people in this country are what I would call, they pay taxes, but then not these taxes which are formal. Because most of our tax base our tax base is small, so there are very few people who actually pay taxes to URA. There are those, as people argue, oh, if you buy salt, you're paying tax, but that's really minimal. So for me, I think it would be prudent for us to learn from certain countries that have ensured that the office of the president is not a joke. One country is China. To even become an LC1, and Ugandans need to interest themselves. There are certain things that you must possess.
You want us to learn democratic virtues?
No. For me, it's not about democracy. I'm talking about the kind of person who should occupy an office that is there to solve problems. I mean, you must show cause why you are the best person to become LC1. What position have you held before, like in school? Okay, what problems have you solved in your small office? And that's why for us as people who have worked with women, we are challenging them and saying, look, before you even say you want to become a councillor, if you've been part of the women's group, let's start from the informal group. What position have you held? Because that's where you start learning how to lead. And that's where the issue of problem solving starts. So for me, that we can learn. And you see, that's the thing. You cannot only learn from countries that we say are democratic. Because interestingly, China, which doesn't practice the kind of democracy that we aspire for, the way they choose their leaders, you must really show that you're able to solve problems, you're able to, make the community grow before you move to the next level. So you cannot say, I'm going to be LC2, when at LC1 level, you failed to do the basic things that you are mandated to do.
In China, it's almost a cocoon. Do you want us to...
No, that's why I'm saying we must interest ourselves, because you see, we only focus on their presidency. But the way they run local governments, I would encourage more Ugandans to read how the Chinese run local governments. It's actually democratic. You're chosen based on how you are able to resolve the issues in your community before you go to the next level. So you can't jump the ladder when you failed as LC1 and you say, now I've not done well here, I'm going to LC2. Because you have to show cause. There are credentials that you must show that at this level I was able, together with the people, were able to address A, B, C, D before you move to the next level. And that's why for presidency, especially for a country like Uganda, low income, a dependent population, its revenue base is still very small. We have a number of challenges. So for me, anyone who wants to run for this office, you must at least show us that, okay, when I was an LC2, let's start from the basic. This is what I was able to do, and this is what I can show.
There's a man, let me tell you, there's a man who has been in that office coming now to 40 years. But sometimes when I hear you people speaking, it's like you're saying, he should actually leave. I'm just, surprised. I'm saying maybe some people think he's the best competent one. And you're saying he should...
No, for us to ask us what kind of person should be president. We are talking about the 180-something who have picked forms. Opportunity.
There's one of the candidates who said that God told him to marry 4 women from the 4 regions to be able to resolve the problems of the 4 regions.
There's an MP who came on good
how annoying can this be?
So for me, Kenneth
is supposed to be my president.
Kenneth, as I conclude, this is a serious position. Unfortunately, we are caught in our legal regime, which allows every Tom, Dick, Harry, Mary, Jane to pick a form for a country which should not even have the luxury of joking with the highest office in this country. Right, that is my
Let's go to Mr. George Musisi. Mr. George Musisi, I've been hearing in some corridors, and I want to put it to you. There are some people in this country who actually think your leader, Robert Kyagulanyi, is not fit enough to be president. I'm sure you've heard about that.
Where do those people base? What do they say? What is their basis?
Well, I don't know, but you've heard it.
So your rumors only stop at that extent?
They are not rumors.
Anyhow, no, you said you hear from corridors. That means you
They are not
eavesdrop.
rumors. We have had people talk about it.
Let me address that. Though I don't want to simplify it on an individual because that would be narrowing the debate. For starters, the law is very clear on who can be president. Secondly, when our lawmakers, the constitutional lawmakers in 1994, set standards for presidency, they set particular standards. Even then, they set 35 years and senior 6 and registered voter and so on and so forth. Over the time, other lawmakers decided to change the constitution and remove the age limit. So, for starters, anyone who says that so-and-so is not fit should give another reason outside the law, because if the law allows, as it is now. So if a person says that so-and-so is not, because I look at it in two different ways, and I'm saying I'm not personifying it, I'm broadening the debate on the people aspiring. Of course, there are many people who have come for different reasons. Some are just for humor, some for comic relief, I'm sure. I'm sure even my brother.
Others are here for likes.
Moses in Sereko will soon come. But however, and I also agree that presidency is a serious thing that should not be taken lightly. However, I don't want to fall in the trap, the elitism trap of thinking that presidency is a preserve of a particular elite who should speak a particular style. Unlike Perry, I want to pick my analogies from the bigger democracies like the USA, which is celebrating democracy for over 300 years. For so long, the US presidency had some unwritten rules. You have to be a veteran from Vietnam. You have to have served in Washington for a while. Until we saw
Trump.
The 44th president. No, not leave alone Trump. The 44th, Barack Obama, who was not even had not been a senator for 3 years, saying, I'm going to run. And everyone thought it was a joke, like you are saying, those rumors you are hearing. Everyone thought Barack Obama was mad that this black man, who has hardly been a senator for 2 years, wants to run for president. And lo and behold, he didn't have a history in Washington, didn't have a history of Vietnam, and what happened? And he was black. We saw the 45th president. No history of Washington, no history of Vietnam. By the way, the US presidency has even no academic requirements. There's no academic requirement to be in the White House. Any person can be, as long as you are an American who is born by birth. So every society produces leaders, and I don't want to fall into it. Fortunately, Uganda has had a professor for president before. It has had a lawyer for a president. It has had all sorts of people. So I don't want to fall into the trap of thinking that there should be a particular, otherwise that is elitism, that is because societies evolve, politics is dynamic. To imagine that what transpired 40 years ago, many years ago in the US, not even long ago, about 15 years ago, a presidential candidate could lose an election for just saying a bad word, could lose an election. Today we have a convict for his presidency, and he's one of the most popular ones. He's a convicted fraudster. He's president. So to imagine that presidents will always be looked at in particular prisms, I think we would be being intellectually dishonest and would not be looking at what is happening. Societies produce leaders. Now, going to I think every leader should be judged by what they are presenting and what they are, not on the basis of preset standards. Because if we have to set preset standards, we have seen Parliament, for instance, some of the best MPs we've had were not based at their previous vocations. Fortunately, Parliament is a mixture of so many things. This Parliament today is one of the most educated. It has so many master's degrees. It has PhDs. Is it the best Parliament that you've seen? This is one of the most educated parliaments we have. So for intellectuals to sit and say, no, we need some particular, that is true. However, you have to appreciate that leadership also calls for some extra values that sometimes don't necessarily correlate with education, by the way. And that don't necessarily correlate with a position served. So for me, I think it's a balance. I look at it as a balance of two things. And it's not right to lock out someone because you don't know their name, or because they have not served in parliament before, or because they have not been seen serving in local government. We've seen a plethora of people, of good leaders who have emerged from out of the blue, and they have emerged as good leaders.
All right, Spectrum Extra on Radio 1 FM 90. We've been joined by our fourth panelist. When we return, I will introduce him and also encourage him to be part of this discussion. But keep your comments coming via the WhatsApp line 0703 090 090. Spectrum Extra continues after this break. Well, thank you so much for staying with us on Spectrum Extra live on Radio 1 FM 90. I can tell you the debate that continued off air as people were still arguing about who qualifies to be president of the Republic of Uganda. It was especially hot between Mr. George Musisi, Charity Imbisiwe, and Ms. Perry Aritua.
Charity is an elitist.
Thank you so much for joining us, and keep your comments coming via the WhatsApp line 0703 090 090. Our fourth panelist, the Honorable Stephen Tashovya, Commissioner, Uganda Electoral Commission. He was MP. He was chairperson of the Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee. So when we talk about electoral issues, some of the issues we are discussing now, including the laws and left, right, and center, he was one of the people involved in actually framing them. It's a pleasure having you, Honorable Stephen Tashovya, and quite some time. We used to meet up in the corridors and rooms at Parliament. It's a pleasure having you on Spectrum Extra.
Thank you, Kenneth. It's indeed a pleasure meeting you after a while. I used to see you when you were a fairly young man. I can see. I can see. Time is also taking toll on you.
40 years have kept him in touch.
Like it has done to all of us. I'm happy to meet Charity, with whom we have worked in this business of elections and democracy, and Perry, and my land friend, Mr. Musi. It's a pleasure to be here after a while to share our views and share our understanding of what is taking place. Let me say that I will, as much as possible, restrict myself to what I'm doing right now in the Electoral Commission without going into politics, which I'm no longer participating. Maybe my brother here. I hear a lot about him and Xtra. But it's indeed a pleasure to come and join colleagues to come and...
You want to wish him good luck?
Yeah, certainly, yes. I wish him good luck.
Oh,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right. And you found us discussing the fact that this week you had so many visitors expressing interest in the presidency of this country than never before.
Yeah.
And how has the Electoral Commission treated this sudden interest in the presidency? You had the suggestion that probably we need to rethink who should actually run for the office of the president.
Yeah. Let me start from where maybe Perry, the submission of Perry, that we should have, we shouldn't have the riff-raff, you know, of everybody.
That was Charity's word.
That was Charity.
The
The
riff-raff.
riff-raff coming into, you know, leadership, being leaders in the country. And I think Perry was talking about China, how people come into leadership. Maybe I should inform Perry that I had time also to be in China and even study their system. First of all, in China, the Communist Party, by constitution, is the ruling party. So you must be a member of the Communist Party to access any position of leadership. Number two, membership in the Communist Party is restricted. You must meet some criteria. You must be vetted by the party before you become a member of the Communist Party. Even in universities, to belong to a branch of the Communist Party in a university, you must be vetted. You know, China has about 1.4 billion people now, but the Communist Party has approximately 77 million people ruling China. You know, so that's the Communist Party. So to access leadership to the highest level of becoming a president, you pass through those vettings. You must meet criteria, academic criteria, and so on. Yes. But Uganda is a democracy. As the council was saying, power belongs to the people. The way to access leadership positions and being a president is spelled out in the constitution. You must be a Ugandan. You must be above 18 years, you must be have A level, you know, and that's it. If you have those qualifications, then you qualify to access any position of leadership, whether it is a president, whether it is a chairman, whether it is. So, for us as the Electoral Commission, having so many people coming in, um, and they have the qualifications, that's a matter for Ugandans, because at the end of the day, Ugandans will choose the person whom they think will lead them. So they could be 10, they could be 20, they could be 100. I'm told there are now 156 people that have come in. But at the end of the day, they will be subjected to the sieve, to the vetting, to the voting of the people of Uganda. And the people of Uganda, I mean, they will choose the person to lead them. So for us as a commission, I should say we are passively recipients of the people who qualify to be to access leadership positions in the country.
What is expected of these people beyond picking these papers from the Electoral Commission? What are they supposed to do now?
Well, if you look at the Presidential Elections Act, I think Section 4, it allows people who want to access that office, who are aspiring to be presidents, to be given time to go and meet the people, to be known, to write their manifestos, to fundraise, to access the population so that the people are informed about the people who are aspiring to be their leaders. But two, in the exercise within the time, like now from now, they are supposed also to collect signatures of the people who are their nominators, the people who are seconding them. In our laws, each candidate is supposed to get 100 people from 2/3 of the districts in Uganda, which are 98 districts. So within 1 month, they will be going around the country, collecting and soliciting and collecting those signatures, whom they will present, in addition to the 20 million shillings provided in the law, whom they will present the commission to qualify, if they qualify within the law, to be nominated. Today there are 156.
156?
Yes. Maybe by the close of the exercise there could be 200, but let me tell you, by the time the process concludes, certainly the numbers will be much less because of the qualifications, the legal qualifications, but two, also the even getting signatures to be able to get 90 people from 100 people from 98 districts. It's not a cup of tea. It's not like talking here in a studio. And many people have failed before. So that's the purpose for giving the forms, which we hope they will return when they are being nominated.
All right. I want to stay with you a little bit. And now we want to tackle the issue of the roadmap. I know this issue of people who have been coming to your office to pick nomination papers. It's part of the key milestones on the roadmap. But this very week, there have been concerns about dates that are changing. Today, we hear the Electoral Commission is announcing this, and the following day, another date is coming. And some people have been concerned and saying, why is this happening? Some people have even suggested that you have already started, sort of controlling how you want this election to go. Some people actually think it's a wider plan to rig the process. Why are the dates changing, Honorable Tassobya?
Let me say, first of all, it is good to have a roadmap. And we put out this roadmap 2 years ago. In the roadmap, we spell out the number of activities that are going to be executed, are going to be performed at different times. And when you are drawing the roadmap, you have assumptions. First of all, you are dealing with people, you are going to need resources, you are going to need money. So you make assumptions when you are drawing the roadmap. But in the course of time, you find that some of the assumptions that you made at the time of drawing the roadmap, some assumptions change. He will tell you, Mr. Musi will tell you, Council will tell you, a number of times, and you have had a number of times when we approach a benchmark, you get, presentations, you get suggestions, you get presentations from different stakeholders, from parties, from individuals, that given the time, for example, you have given for the display of the register, many people are going to miss out. That may be, given the time you have given for this activity, the students will not be available. So you also respond. We are a people's institution. We are not working in a vacuum. So many times we respond to some of those challenges that we meet. At times we don't get the funds in time. At times the stakeholders, political parties say we are not ready. You have heard even Parliament. We are supposed to be working independently, but working independently, we decide independently, but we also listen to the views of the stakeholders, including the media. The media has many times come up to express their views and suggestions. But the benchmark, let me say that the benchmark, the deadline is that we must have elections between 12th of January and 9th of February next year. That is a deadline, I mean, which we cannot change.
All right. For us as the media, one of the things you did not take into account was the fact that we wanted an arrangement where we would have early voting so that we were always on duty,
Yes.
can vote and then concentrate on covering the elections. You ignored our views, but
No,
that's
I have
very
to
okay.
correct that. I have to correct that. First of all, the Electoral Commission doesn't make laws on who votes and what time he votes.
You can recommend.
Let me tell you that even us, even me as a commissioner, I would have wanted to vote early to exercise my right to vote for my member of parliament, my president, in time so that I can go and do electoral commission work. But the law does not have that provision. You must have heard of, there are very many people involved, the security people, the medical people, people who are on duty, who would wish to vote. And we proposed this to Parliament, but it hasn't been captured in the law. So we have to wait patiently until that comes up. That's why we are also caught up.
All right. Let's go to Mr. George Musisi. Mr. George Musisi, are you as a political person concerned about the issues of the dates that are changing? Is it one of the issues you would say should raise concern?
Of course, I agree with the Honorable Tashobia that this is within the EC's discretion to set the roadmap. The area of concern is where you set out a roadmap for a pre-planned activity, like a general election, which is planned earlier. Political parties align their activities, their internal roadmaps to the EC's roadmap, which is the main regulator. So, of course, for my political party, I can confirm that there was never any consultation, not that they were mandated, but it was or maybe good, like Honorable Tashobia said, that sometimes they consult these key stakeholders. But if you change, because of course the changes have come haphazardly, first to reduce and then later to enlarge, of course it affects the internal political parties' roadmaps. I want to imagine that even other parties were affected because we had aligned our roadmaps to the EC roadmap. So it does mean that you have to change the entire. But then it also doesn't reflect well on the EC's image on preparedness. Because you want to remember when we had a debate here regarding LC elections and Mr. Majezi pushing the as and when he wishes. Every time the time is coming to an end, by stroke of a pen, he votes for the entire country and extends the term. And we're saying that when you elected these LCs, you knew it was a predetermined term that after 5 years we're going to an election. So it doesn't augur very well that a few weeks to a set roadmap, it all of a sudden changed. So it goes back to questions of credibility, that how prepared are you? It just happens even if you're going for that joke which used to be made about KQ, Kenya Airways, that as you are boarding and people are repairing tires, how do you feel as a passenger boarding when you see? So how do Ugandans do? Because most of these institutions, just like courts, is in a dedicated position as a guarantor, as a patron of democracy at this stage. So everything regarding its image, perceptions are key in politics. It may be EC may have good reasons for changing the roadmap, but you need very, very also good explanations for people to know that this haphazard change is not as a result of other factors, but it's been caused by good reasons.
All right. Let's see the view of Ms. Charity. Charity, any concerns on the changing dates?
There are major concerns for me as an observer, and I've raised them.
I think the first concern should be whether you'll be allowed to observe or not.
Yeah, that one is key. I'm going to discuss it with the Honorable Tashobi. I'm very happy that he's here. No, it's not personal. It's a national issue, because one of the deficits for this election is that we do not have a united citizen observation framework. And so it would be good to have a discussion, hear from him, and then see is there a way he's going to support the framework, not him alone, but the commission, meaning the Electoral Commission, because that is in tandem with Article 38. But back to the roadmap.
Yes, please.
So the roadmap is a strategy document you've had. And the Electoral Commission puts it out that the public will know this is how we are moving. They give us actual dates and they give us milestones. Now, once the milestones are on that document, what it means for the rest of us is that we begin to track what the Electoral Commission has said they are going to do. Have they done it or not done it? Because all those things are legally provided for. And anything not done as per the Constitution, then they tinker with Article 61A, which says the Electoral Commission is supposed to ensure a free, fair, credible election. Now, those words are sacrosanct. Those words are revered throughout the Constitution as it lies. The one reinforces the other, that the freeness is affected by processes. The fairness, the trust issues he's talking about. Can we trust that what they are changing is for the good of all the stakeholders? You see, the roadmap is a collaborative document. It is a social contract between the Electoral Commission and the rest of us, the citizens and the observers, and everybody who is participating in the electoral process. Now, if you have a social contract, a contract is the meeting of minds. If our minds are not meeting with the Electoral Commission as to how often the roadmap is changing, then we begin to be suspicious. And for me, that's where my problem was. I said, we've had roadmaps. We had a roadmap in 2001, we had a roadmap in 2006, we had a roadmap in 2011, we had a roadmap in 2021, we had a roadmap because these are consistent elections as we've followed them. But they were not changing too fast. What went wrong with the 2025, 2026 roadmap? Why do we have to keep adjusting the youth election polling dates? Then non-unionized workers, we adjust the dates. Then the numbers also, one we said we were going to deal with the numbers from UBOS statistics. Later we now see NIRA is updating the national IDs. But we also know that the Electoral Commission is mandated to come up with its own voter register, which they did. The law does say they must compile. What else do? They must validate and display that register such that we know. The first number that Electoral Commission talked about while the validation was still going was 19 million voters. And then they came back and said, no, now there are 22 million voters. And I'm happy that Commissioner Tashovia is here. I want to give you numbers in comparison between 2016 to 2026. So in 2016, we had 16,489,000 voters.
16 million?
Yeah, 16,489,170 voters. In 2021, we had 18,103,603 voters, slightly above 18 million voters. In 2026, now, the Electoral Commission strategy document, the first one that was released, projected 24,076,900.
24,706?
900.
900.
Yes, that was the projection.
Yeah.
Now, after the update process, the first number that Electoral Commission put out was 19,076,900. But Electoral Commission did mention at the end of January that the update was still ongoing. They were verifying names. The last number that is coming in from the Electoral Commission is what I still don't have clearly. I have a number of 22,103,603. I need a verification. What is the number we are running with for 2026? Now, when you come to the regions, in 2016, we had 10 regions. In 2021, we grew to 12 regions. In the strategy document of 2025-2026, we have 15 regions. Are we still going with 15? Are we going with the 12 for 2021? Because this now matters when we begin to track the milestones. And that is why I'm saying, in terms of this strategy document that you provided us, it becomes a key issue for us to know. The districts, we had 122 districts in 2016. In 2021, we had 146. The projected number in the strategy document, and that's why I wanted, the number of the document was this. For us, we have now adjusted to this because the Electoral Commission, after the opening of the boundaries and reorganizing of polling stations and coming up with the voter update process, these numbers, some of them changed, but we also know that there are some districts which had been pending, and municipalities and cities, and as of yesterday, Parliament said no, now the new municipalities and cities which were going to go up are no longer going to be passed in this electoral cycle. So the number in the strategy document for 2026 was 155. That is for districts. Now, when you go to counties, we have 194 in 2016. It was 312 in 2021, and the strategy document had 350 for 2026. That is counties. Now, cities and divisions. In 2016, we had only 5 cities, okay, and divisions. Now, in 2021, we had 25. They grew to 33.
2021?
25.
25.
Then in 2026, they grew to 33. That was a projection. Remember that we are still now fluctuating with the new ones who Parliament has said is not passing because of budgetary constraints. So what number do we have now? Are we going to go with the 25 or do we have 30? Constituencies. Now this is even better. We had 296 in 2016. In 2021, we had 353. In 2026, the projected number was 390. Then we go to the sub-counties, towns, municipalities, and divisions. In 2016, we had 1,580. In 2021, we had 2,211. In 2026, we had 3,100. Okay, we have a projection of 3,100 because we can't say we had until the election is done. The parishes and wards.
Oh.
For 2016, because you see these numbers have to continually move along the cycle. And of course, Honorable Tashovia, because of what you said, we've worked on these things before. It is important to know that where are we coming from and how are we heading. And that is why, for me, the roadmap is a very key document.
Okay.
That it has given us numbers. Now the Electoral Commission should come to say, clear, this was our projection, this is where we are at, and then we begin to tick off the milestones,
All right.
because that is what this document does say.
All right.
I want to go with the polling stations, and I want to go with the villages and parishes, then I stop it at that.
All right.
So for 2016, the parishes were 7,795. There were 10,690 in 2021. And in 2026, we project them at 14,000. The villages were 59,315. That was in 2016. And in 2021, there were 70,512. The NRM worked with 72,000 villages. The EC strategy document has 80,000 villages. So which one are we moving with? Polling stations. In 2016, there were 28,010. And in 2021, there were 34,684. And the Electoral Commission projected 42,000 polling stations that we'll be working with for 2026. Now, why do we need to know the numbers of polling stations we're working with? If you're going to, for example, you're a presidential candidate, like these ones who I have told you, the riffraff and everybody, you have to know that you're going to have party agents that you will have to deploy, and in almost all these polling stations, to collect for you data and to see how are you, how is your support base like, and compare with what Electoral Commission is presenting. So for me, from a very basic ground, because this document is our social contract, I want us to clarify on the milestones, to clarify on the things we promised we were going to do within the timeframes that we promised we were going to do, but we've not been able to do them. And also considering Article 61, A, F, and G. G is the one on voter and civic education. Voter education, why? Because the voter has to know for a fact what is happening. Today, for example, there was polling. There was a polling in the districts for the older persons. How many, Kenneth, did you know there was an election today? Today is 15th August, according to the roadmap. According to the road, just pick your roadmap. Bring back my phone, it has the roadmap. According to the roadmap, today, 15th August, there was polling. How many people knew that? So that is the thing, and it is 61G, says voter education information should be out. So we should have had a lot of this information going out, happening, and we should be talking about it. That's the reason this roadmap was given to us 2 years ago, and I celebrated the Electoral Commission.
All right, Spectrum Xtra Radio 1 FM 90. Well, I don't know about you, but as Charity was reading out the numbers, I could clearly feel in my head election results were being declared. But stay tuned, Radio 1 FM 90. We'll return from this break. We'll hear from Perry, and then we'll have Commissioner Tashovia responding to some of these issues that have been put across. Thank you so much for well, thank you for keeping it Radio 1 FM 90. This is Spectrum Xtra, reviewing the major events of the week with a special focus on the electoral roadmap, 2026 electoral roadmap, and the key issues of concern that are coming in from the different stakeholders. In studio, the Honorable Stephen Tashovia, Commissioner, Uganda Electoral Commission, Ms. Charity Kalebo, Executive Director, Electoral Roads Institute, Ms. Perry Aritua, Executive Director, Women Democracy Network, Uganda Chapter, and Mr. George Musisi, lawyer and member of the National Unity Platform. My name is Kenneth Anderson.
Not Kalebo.
Yes, that is why I like him.
My
He's
name
the
is
only
Kenneth
one
Anderson
who
Lukwago,
says
your
my
host.
name correct.
And now let's turn our attention to Ms. Perry Aritua. Perry, you've been listening to the conversation going on the table, the issues that have been raised by all your colleagues here. Let's hear from you. I don't know where you want to pick it from. Is it the National Voters Register? We also had issues of dates that are keeping, that are changing, but let's hear your view on these issues.
I actually want to speak about the importance of trust, of engagement, because there are 4 pillars for the Electoral Commission as they build trust. One is the trust of predictability, and that's why people must be certain that this will happen. That increases trust. The other is the trust of engagement, and I think the Commissioner talked about that, where you engage the stakeholders, they regularly receive information, they're able to give feedback. That is also important. And you see, you get concerned when political parties who are major players are saying, but we are not consulted. I think the EC needs to take that a little bit seriously, because that is one of the pillars, the element of trust of engagement, where you communicate. And then there's also the trust of delivery, where we know that the EC will have resources, that it has competent staff, and that they will deliver on the election. And then the last is integrity. That's really their ethics. Now, on this one of trust of engagement, which is a key pillar for the Electoral Commission, I think the concerns that the parties have raised need to be addressed, that as they go forward, if there is a change that is about to happen, it's important to inform them, because as George rightly said, it also affects their processes. And not only the parties, but the candidates. This week, I had an opportunity to train candidates from different political parties. And one of the key issues that they also raised internally is the issue of predictability. So this does not only affect the National Electoral Commission, but also the internal party processes, where tickets, people are not sure, will I get the ticket? You're told it is coming out this week, then it doesn't come out. That leads to personal health issues. For many of them, they are blood pressure issues, but also your preparation for the election. If, for instance, you had planned that by this date, this will happen, you will start your campaign, that disorganizes you as a candidate. So for me, I think on this matter, as we stick to the issue which you raised in terms of the change of the roadmap, the change of dates in the roadmap, I think the trust of engagement is important, because the EC needs to be able to be seen, to be sharing that information, for instance, where there's a change and the party is also giving their response. Ultimately, of course, the decision will lie with them. We also know that at times they're affected by some logistical issues. If that is communicated, by the way, you'll be surprised that the stakeholder, which for me is actually the voters, the major stakeholder, will eventually understand and say, okay, this was a problem, because there are some problems which are not the EC's problem. You might find it was an issue of resources, it's an issue of something outside their control, but they need to communicate it, because that is one of the major pillars, that trust of predictability. But for me, on this one, we are focusing on the trust of the trust of engagement, that for anything, communicate, let people know, let them respond, so that you're on record. Because in an election, the people will say, oh, we have never heard about that, yet they were at a meeting. You're able to say, no, we actually communicated. That helps you in terms of building your trust and the confidence.
All right.
That's my
Well,
take.
let's now turn to the commissioners, Honorable Stephen Tashovia, to give us quick response to some of the issues that have come out. There are quite many, so we'll try to give him some ample time. But we also have comments that have come in from the listeners, which I'll be reading shortly after he has concluded his submission. Honorable Tashovia, would you like to respond to some of the issues that have been put across?
Well, I think this is quite a mouthful. I don't know how I will respond to them, but I'll make an attempt. One, I would like to concede to what Council Mr. Musi raised, the matter of the predictability of the roadmap and how the parties also prepare themselves on the basis of what we have put up as a roadmap. I think that one I concede. But you see, as I've said, maybe which also relates to Charity's concern about conducting a fair and free and credible election. We have the mandate of the Commission is to conduct a free and fair election, which has to be done within a specified time frame, which is the time I've talked about, the 12th of January to 9th of February. So that is the benchmark, the constitutional requirement. It must be free and fair and credible. All right? So it is against that constitutional requirement that we make a framework, a roadmap to perform activities at different times that will enable us to deliver a free and fair election. And in making the roadmap, you have assumptions. This roadmap was made 2.5 years ago. The roadmap needs people. The roadmap needs resources. The roadmap needs facilities. It needs the technology. So when you are making the roadmap, you make assumptions as to what you will have at different times in order to deliver a free and fair election. So those are the assumptions you have to come up with the roadmap that is saturated with people, against which the parties and stakeholders also base to make their own preparations and their own roadmaps. But over time, as you get on, as you move forward, the assumptions you made at the time of making the roadmap, they change. You are looking at people, maybe you don't have you don't have the people. You are looking at the resources, maybe you don't have the resources. You are looking at the technology, maybe you don't have the relevant technology at the time. So things change, and when things change, you must also respond to the changes and make corresponding adjustments. But let me also say that, which I think Perry also he made a light comment on, the ultimate responsibility of conducting these elections lies with the Electoral Commission. And in doing so, the same constitution gives us the independence. We should be independent because we have the responsibility to the people of Uganda. Whatever comes out we have to be responsible, and that's why that independence is provided for. But having said that, it is still important. That independence does not mean that you are working in a vacuum. You are working with the people. You are working with political parties. They must be heard. They must, you must listen to their views, because at the end of the people, you want candidates, you want participants, and those participants also, they have their limitations over time. So if you make a roadmap and you find that it doesn't meet the requirements, it doesn't meet the objective conditions at the time, it is also our responsibility as a responsible commission to make relevant adjustments. But what we should do, and what we have done, I think Mr. Msi will agree, what we have done all the time, we notify all the parties. We notify them. And when we make the change, we notify them. Some of them come back with feedback, and he's right. I mean, having made your own preparations and roadmaps, it can be disorganizing. So and we have also talked about it in the commission, that as much as possible, the roadmap should be predictable. In any case, that's why we make it, to guide the people. But to be consistent, so that people know that you are going to do this function at this one. But what you are, much as that is your expectation and wish, but the objective condition on the ground may not permit. You may not have the people. You may not have, you may not have the resources. You may not have the people to perform the functions. Maybe you are looking at the technology you are going to use. You don't have it. So you have to adjust. Now, Charity has brought a mouthful. I wish she had kindly alerted me. I would have tried my best to find the information. She's talking about the projected, for example, voters in our roadmap, and what we have now. Of course, the projections are made on the basis of different factors also. The census, at the time, the population projections from UBOS, but over time, the realities also change. Two, you need to prepare, as I've said, the benchmark is having the election at a particular time. But at the same time, you also need to prepare for the people going to participate. You must have the register in time. You have the register in time, but also you have to be careful that you don't also leave out people who are of age and who are qualified, and yet they are not on the registers. That's why you may not come out with the exact number of people. In our cutoff point, I think, was in February or March, but we had to adjust to allow as many Ugandans to participate, to register in these elections. So as to the numbers, the exact numbers, now we have the exact numbers. If you came to the commission, you would be able to access the numbers. So
you want to say after the cutoff in Feb, the electoral commission,
the roadmap,
the electoral commission continued to register people who are clocking 18.
They were verifying.
They were verifying.
Yes, we had a lot of complaints, even from everywhere, that you are leaving out people who are eligible. Some of their forms, some of their credentials are still with NIRA, which gives us the data. So we had to take that into account to accommodate more people, which we have done.
Honorable Tashoya, you are the commission. This should be your second term.
Yes, it is.
In the commission.
It is.
And one would wonder why at this particular time your data is not able to sort of have an interface with the one of NIRA, because this would be automatic. Somebody turns 18, gets a national voters register, they automatically become a voter. You are able to see from the system electronically that now we have 20 or so number of voters, because they have clocked 20.
No, you see,
or 18 and above.
It is not as easy as you are putting it. First of all, NIRA is an independent institution. It has a way it does its own work. It collects data, it processes it. It is not under the control or management of the Electoral Commission.
You are also an independent institution.
So we receive and process the National Voters Register on the basis of the information that is given to us by NIRA.
One would say that's legalese. You are all serving the same entity, the government of Uganda, and the ordinary Ugandan.
Yes, we are serving Ugandans. I agree with you, but we are two entities. we are two entities with different mandates. And the point I'm making to you, what I'm putting to you, is that NIRA is not under the control of the Electoral Commission. If, for example, all the activities related to elections were under the control and management of the Electoral Commission, that would be a different matter. And that is also another argument, because there is also another argument why you should have central data for all government entities to use centered in NIRA. So, I mean, those matters arise because of the nature of the setup of the system.
As we speak now, are you able to tell the country how many voters we are going to have in 2024, holding other factors constant, going by the statistics you already have?
I have said if you came tomorrow to office, you'd be able, but the last I heard, as I think Charity had...
22 million?
It's about 22 million. But to get an accurate number, you'd have to come to the Electoral Commission. Yes.
And how reliable is that register? Because there's a concern about its credibility. Some people are concerned and saying...
no, that's too general. So which people? Which people are saying that? Because we have only one register. And the register will be accessed, it's accessed to every person, every Ugandan, all candidates, all parties. So which people are complaining that it's not reliable? In what respect?
Anderson uses some people saying Gwen is the one who's passing on a rumor in his
I agree with you.
So for the first time you're conniving to put me in a corner.
No, not in a corner. Because we have only one register and it is accessible to all Ugandans. Actually, we have a mandate, we have a legal requirement to give these registers to all the parties and all Ugandans on payment of a fee. So the register is one.
The register is one?
Yes.
All right. Let's move on and hear from the other stakeholders. George Musisi, any concerns about the National Voters Register? You had the response of Honorable Tashovia.
Of course, the concerns, some of them have already been thrown on the table by Charity, that at this point, the register should actually be accessible to everyone. Secondly, and I want to start off from the point where Honorable Tashovia left it, the payment of a fee. Even the fee is very restrictive. It's prohibitive, actually.
How much is it?
We tried to get a register for Kawempe North during the petition of Honorable Nalukola and Hajat Nambi. And the invoice we got from Electoral Commission was 47 million Uganda shillings. And that's just one constituency. Yes.
So how much is it for the national
So how expensive would it be for a register, a national register, for a party that was just one constituency?
That's huge.
Charity was talking about. We got that
million.
invoice. I wouldn't say it. We got an invoice. Actually, we failed to pay it because so the fee is prohibitive. The fee is prohibitive, but why should it even be charged? This should be information accessible, especially going to particular stakeholders. For instance, candidates, even parliamentary candidates should be able to get a copy of their.
That's how you plan.
That's how you plan, and this should be made by the government. I'm not even talking about the commission, by the government, because the constitutional requirement is government should do all it can to ensure that the election is free and credible, and the register goes to the root of a credible election. We don't want to be like the other party which had elections, which Anderson, you know very well, where some candidates, each candidate would have their own register. We had that. Then in Kakumiro, the voters, total number of people who voted were more than those on the register. So we don't want to be like that party. So the register is very critical. And of course, at this point of the election calendar, I want to imagine that it's ready. Just as it should be ready for display, it should be able to be accessible. And the mere fact that at this point in time, maybe parties have not got the register which is going to be used, Charities, who gave us a very long, lengthy, well-researched statistics, doesn't have the register. She just has projected numbers. It shows that the preparedness of the actors, meaning that you are preparing, you don't know a register.
Right, Spectrum Xtra on Radio 1 FM 90. Now let's shift our gears and look at some other...
No, but I think that...
Would you want to respond to it?
I should respond. One, the register is a public document. And the law provides that we should provide parties with the registers. The copy of the register. And we have done it religiously.
In previous elections, yes.
Yes.
But this one, do you have the copy?
Not yet, of course.
You need to.
Do you know the time when we are supposed to provide the register?
No.
We are within time. we are within time. We are supposed to give registers within 2 weeks before.
Do you give or sell
But I
them?
want to say that even before the legal provided time, we shall be ready to have the registers.
Honorable
But two,
Tashobe,
yes.
do you give the register or you sell them? Because from what...
No, give them free, political parties. That is what the law says.
Yes.
So why were you getting an
But for any
invoice?
other Ugandan, for any,
Council Musisi talked about applying for a register and they were invoiced 47 million.
well, I have not seen the invoice. What I know as a matter of fact, parties as a matter of right are entitled to get free registers.
Actually, we applied. For Kawempe North, we applied. The Secretary General wrote a letter, which was never replied to. Then in the course of the petition, because we needed to rely on it for some
Yes.
purposes, we applied for some documents, of course, which we paid for, which were cheaper. Some other things like declaration forms, certified declaration forms, and then the register. And then the invoice was actually prohibitive.
No, but Mr. Musi, I think NOP being a party that it is, with the capacity that it has, first of all, any party can, or any person, on payment of 100,000 shillings, it can get a soft copy.
Yeah, the soft copy.
A soft copy from the register, which you can really roll out and get as many copies as possible. So,
The soft copy wouldn't be certified, Commissioner, because one rely on yes, for court purposes, wouldn't be certified.
Admissibility of evidence.
no, but I've said as a matter of right, you're also entitled, as a party, you're entitled to have a register. That's what the law says.
Yes.
So now, well, I can't see the letter which my brother is
Sort that out.
is writing too. But what I can say is that it's their right. It's the right of the parties to get registered, and we have been providing them religiously.
In
In the
presidential
previous
elections,
election.
in presidential elections, not in parliament elections or by-elections. Because for the by-election, I think maybe that's why they regarded it as a special case. You've been providing them in general elections.
Yes, they
religiously.
provide them in general elections
But
because
that's-
it's a requirement of the law.
Yes, we follow the law. Maybe you know where to address your concerns. About
That's why we need to go and change.
All right, let's now move on. And we need to tackle one particular issue, and I want to begin on this with you, Perry, the issue of concerns about electoral violence. There have been discussions on whether the Electoral Commission has a role to play to help us avoid that situation. Well, the people have been saying it's entirely a security forces issue. Let's hear from you. The commissioner is here, probably can carry the message back to the Electoral Commission. What is the concern about electoral violence as a main feature of our election process?
Three things that it does. It creates fear. And you see, you want citizens to participate in this civic process because elections are a civic process. And citizens, by right, who have met the conditions, 18 years and above, you're registered, you have a right to participate. So what violence does, it creates fear. So you'll find citizens may not go to vote because they're afraid that they may not reach the station. They're even afraid to participate in the processes of the election, including campaigns, going to the candidates' meetings. So that is the first. The second, it can lead to death. And we saw it in the last election. And for me, that is, I think, one of the worst things that every parent dreads. To hear that your child, either your spouse was caught up in a fracas that they had no knowledge of. And I think for every Ugandan who was privy to 2020, especially 2020, when we lost a number of Ugandans during the arrest of, I think, Robert Chagulanyi, that I hope it does not repeat itself. I still think about the parents who lost children who were not even voters. Those images don't leave many of our minds because some of these children were the same age as our children. So for no Ugandan should die because of an election. So it can lead to death. But thirdly, for the younger generation, which is supposed to be nurtured to participate, they then see this as a no-go area. And you don't want that if you want to grow your democracy because it's about the people. You want them to participate. You want them to understand why they should participate, to vote for the candidates of their choice, and ultimately for those who are elected to have legitimacy. Because if people don't vote for you, it is then difficult for you to mobilize them to develop this country. And for me, the call would be for every candidate to make it their business to ensure that our elections are peaceful. Because at times what the candidate says has a lot of value in terms of the voter. If you have, for instance, supporters who are very fervent, those who really believe in you, and you say, you know what, let us have a peaceful election. Let us behave. You know, Ugandans, funnily enough, outside this country, people think we are very peaceful people. But when they watch our elections, my colleagues always ask, what happened to you people? You know, so we need to, for candidates, I think it's a responsibility. The others are security agents, you know. And I think there are laws. You know, we have the Human Rights Enforcement Act, which is very clear that we must hold people who abuse their power, and they are supposed to serve this country as security officials. Those who abuse their power should be held accountable. And I think there's been a shortfall in the area of accountability. There have been some, yes, some have been arrested, but, you know, the public at times doesn't have that information. So for many of us who observe, we'll say, but that's impunity. Why don't people be held accountable? Because with the law, once you hold people accountable, it also deters others. Those who had similar thoughts start realizing, oh, I might be caught up in this, so let me refrain. And I think the call would go to their commanders, the ones who are in charge of these security forces. You know, let's not make this country become one where we hate it, because it's the only country that we have. So for me, I think that the commanders of the security forces need to really call their people to order. And I know you're going to ask me, again, the way you're looking at me, I know the next question. But people, because you see, most times they'll say, I got an order from above. The Human Rights Enforcement Act is saying, no, you're going to be held accountable. So for me, I think let's start with the Human Rights Enforcement Act, holding them accountable so that you don't hide behind the commander, you know. Maybe that is where we should start, because if we don't do that, my fear is you're teaching a young generation that an election is a war. Yeah. Kawempe North, I can tell you, for many of us who observe elections, it was one of the things that we were, you know, you're caught by surprise, because most people are asking you, what is happening in your country? Your tanks are going for an election. And we're like, no, this is actually a by-election. It was shameful. And for me, as a person who would really love for this country's image to continue to be one where people would love to come and invest here, people make decisions based on the way we do our politics. So if they know Uganda's elections are perpetually violent, it also affects revenue, because no one will come to invest. You watch this space as we are moving towards the election. The economists, they need to actually track, and that affects our growth as a country. So we should not look at it just as, you know, an internal affair, but how does it affect investment? How does it affect our image? How does it affect the generations that want to lead in the future? Those are my comments.
All right, Spectrum X on Radio 1 FM 90. Let's go for a break now. When we return, we'll hear from Charity, hear from Mr. George Musisi, and then get the responses from the Commissioner. Of interest, we want to hear the position of the Electoral Commission on these issues. Do they have the authority to actually call into order the security forces? What do they advise needs to be done to ensure that we do not have violence in our election process? Thank you to Radio 1 FM 90. We continue after this break. Thank you so much for staying with us on Spectrum Extra as we focus on the 2026 electoral roadmap and the key issues of concern from the different stakeholders. In studio, Honorable Stephen Tashoya, Commissioner, Uganda Electoral Commission, Ms. Charity Caleb, Executive Director, Election Laws Institute, Ms. Perry Aritua, Executive Director, Women Democracy Network, Uganda Chapter, Mr. George Musisi, lawyer and member of the National Unity Platform Party. My name is Kenneth Anderson Lukwago, your host. Very quick comments coming in from the listener here before we actually continue with the discussion. We hear from the Honorable Emmanuel Lumaladombo. Old people get concerned when old bonds are mentioned. Council Musisi feels targeted when those in the studio prefer preset standards. He thinks they may be targeting his boss because he is a comedian. That's Honorable Emmanuel Lumaladombo, the Director of Information at the NRM Party Secretariat. I'll give you an opportunity to respond. We have more comments coming in. Greetings, Spectrum Extra. On the mockery that has become of aspiring presidential candidates, there are those who would think that an 80-year-old standing for presidency for the 9th time is similarly nonsensical. So who is fooling who here? That's a comment from Kasozi Mulindwa. We should change the methodology that whoever comes to pick presidential nomination forms should pay the 20 million shillings cash. Radio 1, let the Jerrys, Toms, and Johns demystify the big notion people hold on the president in Uganda. Let them demystify it, especially as it's currently done in Uganda, where it involves appointment of praise singers and relatives in positions to enrich themselves at the expense of the real public service, who can't do that really. Unless it's about real public service, everybody else can do this current one. And then, good evening, Spectrum Xtra. We need stronger institutional and law-abiding leaders only. Otherwise, the rest is just useless. It's just useless. That's why NRM has taken us 40 years backwards instead. Sorry for Charity. She doesn't know we have Ugandans who can transform Uganda within 5 years if given the chance. That's Mawa Amaza Moyo with that particular comment. Spectrum Xtra, the so-called educated or qualified have actually let the country down, and Africa generally. The mismanagement had been by educated with huge degrees. They don't vote, don't vie for leadership positions, but only criticize. Mugabe had how many degrees? What did he do to Zimbabwe? I think the most important thing is one shouldn't be a criminal, because you can see what is happening to the US with a certified criminal in charge, allegedly. Spectrum Xtra, help us, Tashovia, how impartial he is, having been an NRM, or is it the case of monkeys deciding on the fate of the forest? Hello, Spectrum. Uganda is in limbo. How can we have a president without any qualification, just senior 6? Which job in Uganda can someone get today with an A level without any experience? Let's wake up, fellow Ugandans. How comes a district chairman, you must attain 35 years? That is Mutebi Moses listening in from Jinja West. Anderson, the most educated leaders have turned out to be the worst in our country. Case in point, our parliament. The more educated the leaders come, the more they have sold our country and are detached from the community. However, the uneducated or an A-level dropout criteria just does not cut it for this top job and office. Indeed, the riffraff should be sieved out by a very rigorous process. The presidency is a very serious office, not to be taken for granted. The problem in Uganda, there is no distinct difference between the president and the presidency. This has led to the president, presidency, judiciary, executive, and legislative, including the electoral commission, being one. What a katogo and a mess we are in. Then we have another point here. Out of 500 MPs, only 30% have good ideas that can develop Uganda. But since the president just needs numbers, only not the brain, it's just okay for the likes of Charity. Bwana Lukwago, China's system is not a cocoon as you claimed. Honorable Tashobe explained a vigorous process there, so he suggests you spend more private time with him. In Africa, we often imitate Western-style democracy even when it doesn't suit us. The Chinese system, which delivers good results at lower costs, outperforms Uganda's democratic process. Western democracy may not work well in poor countries because it often fails to deliver expected results. Money can influence outcomes, as everyone knows. Regarding China, its benevolent government, focused on development and stability, is often criticized by Western media for dictatorship and human rights abuses, but these claims are exaggerated. If China were truly as depicted, it wouldn't be achieving such remarkable progress. That's the agenda there with that comment. So many other comments coming in. Let me read the two last one. So Ugandans are being castigated for aspiring for better governance standards than the US. Talk about intellectual dishonesty. Some opinion leaders only use the US as a benchmark when it suits their questionable interests. That's Rona listening in from here in Kampala. The Electoral Commission has been organizing the 2026 elections since 2021. Failure to draw a reliable roadmap is inexcusable. They should be consistent, because failure to plan is planning to fail. Come 2026, their nakedness will be exposed. That is Lumbuye Lawrence listening in from Zigoti. Lastly but not least at this time, ask the gentleman from the EC, where is the money for civic education? People not seem to understand what is happening in the country in as far as election process is concerned. Let me hope they are not reserving these monies meant for civic education for the construction of personal flats and shopping malls in Kampala. That's a comment from Kibet Patrick Nabutanyi, listening in from Bududa District. well, the comments have been very sharp, and everybody has been sort of, taken on, including me, the moderator. I've actually been advised to spend some quality time with Honorable Tashovia. Well, those are the comments.
I advise you to
would you
take that advice
would you like to
seriously.
respond to some of the comments that have come in? Honorable Tashovia.
He has already responded.
I've already responded.
You've already responded. You should take it seriously.
That you should take that advice very seriously. But let me just make some comments. I'd like to appreciate the comments and the advice of the people that have called in. But let me make one general comment on security, which Perry also talked about. First of all, there is nothing as pleasing to a commissioner or to an election official as having, a peaceful election. Because at the end of the day, we are at the center. The commissioners and our staff are at the center of conducting an election. So when there is violence, we are also part of the, of the victims of violence. Let alone the Ugandans, which Pere, I think, made a very good point about. So we want a free and fair, but also secure election. Nobody, indeed, as you have pointed out, no child, no Ugandan should die in the process of electing a leader. So it goes now to the point we have been making very many times. Can we have an election without security? Is it possible that we can have an election without security officers, without the police, and other relevant security officers? It's not possible. The other time when we had a by-election, which many people have talked about in Kawempe, we had a meeting, a pre-election meeting in Kawempe. And one or two of the people who rose up to speak, he said, actually, we are prepared for you. We are prepared for you. And if you leave the police in charge of this by-election, we know how to handle them. Take away your army men, but the police, we shall deal with them. Now, which responsible institution, which government would take that very lightly, where there is a threat not only to attack the voters, but even the policemen? My brother here, Mr. Msi, one time we had a meeting in the Electoral Commission. I think you remember the threats which were thrown by one of the very senior people, my very good brother, who were from NUP, threatening us in our own office, threatening our dependents. So security is a matter that all of us should take, and we, as a commission, we take very seriously. But security is not a responsibility of the commission alone. Everybody, every Ugandan, every candidate has a responsibility. But the police as an institution has a constitutional mandate to maintain law and order, to detect crime, whether in elections or outside elections. And it depends on the way people handle themselves, the way the people, candidates, all of us conduct ourselves during election, during the campaigns. We have been to some of the by-elections where you go and you find policemen just sleeping on their vehicles because there is no threat. But where there is a threat, like we have had in some situations, should the police or should security people go and sleep, and at the end of the day we have Ugandans dying? So people should take responsibility.
But there are also triggers on Tashovia.
Yes.
When we hear about pre-ticked ballots, we hear about
we
ballot
are talking about
stuffing.
let me respond.
I'm looking at the things that trigger violence. Eventually, people start, complaining and organizing, and then the security agencies come to actually intervene and hence the violence.
I want to ask you one question. I have quoted an incident where some two people in a pre-election meeting were threatening to attack policemen even before the exercise took place. Had any ballot been pre-ticked? So the point I'm trying to make is security is a responsibility of all of us. Actually, for us, we are implementers. We are a vehicle of conducting elections. But the matter of security is for all Ugandans. For the security people, what we are doing right now, we are engaging all security institutions that participate in elections, the police, the army, and all other relevant institutions for each one of us or each one of them to know and appreciate their responsibilities. But also, as Perry has said, candidates must be mindful. They must be mindful about what they say, about what they conduct, how they conduct themselves, because some of the violence is encouraged or is a result of the statements by the players, by the stakeholders who are in the elections. Even the media. You remember in Kenya in 2020, after the violence? Yes, after 2007, the violence in 2007,
yes.
the media came up and they said, no, this is our country, we cannot allow it to burn. We must be responsible in the way we write, in the way we communicate, that we don't want violence, because if this country burns, all of us are losers. This is the country which we call, this country called Uganda is our home. Even us as commissioners, even election officials, our people who are conducting it, this is our country. So it is the responsibility of all citizens. And that's why we want to commend some institutions, even civil society, the charities and others. When you are out there, when the candidates are out there, when we are out there, that it's not only the electoral commission, that is the message we should send, that we want a free and fair elections, but also peaceful. And that's why we want also to commend the Interreligious
Council.
Interreligious Council. They have come out strongly with this message that they want a violence-free election. Nobody benefits. No, as people are going to Parliament, others are maimed, others are in prison, others have died through acts that could otherwise have been avoided. So security is a responsibility of all of us. Security is the responsibility of all the players as we approach the time. My brother Musi is going for elections. I think in addition to the message of what he's going to do his people, he should also send out a message that they should conduct themselves in a peaceful manner. Because at the end of the day, when our leaders go to Parliament, they also need the voters safe, secure, not maimed, not imprisoned, out of the violence that at times comes through elections.
All right. Very quickly, before we went for the break, Honorable Mr. Musisi and Charity, you had not shared your views on the issue of electoral violence and what actually we need to do as a country to move forward. We have heard from Perry, we have heard from the Commissioner. Let's hear from you.
Very quickly,
Sir George Musisi.
Anderson,
and you had the pointer there from Honorable Tashuria,
yes,
that your people have been threatening the Electoral Commission. Even in their house.
Actually, at one instance, he was actually there. When we are threatened by a senior member of NUP.
Well,
not him.
Well, before I go to the issue of the violence, allow me quickly respond to two people who reacted to your phone. One is Rina, who said that we shouldn't bring an analogy of the US. Of course, we bring it with context. We pick many examples from the US, especially when it becomes, because of the long history of democratic values, over 300 years of trying to practice democracy. They are not perfect, but we pick some examples. I picked US, Perry picked China, we all contextualize. Then my brother and friend, elder brother, Honorable Dombo, made a cheeky comment, which he usually makes cheeky comments when he's seated in his Mukono home, taking his local brew from Chaleja. But
he brings local brew from Chaleja and then takes it from Mukono.
Yes.
Is that a fact?
Then comes to work in Kampala.
have shared.
Honorable Dombo is my friend, so he loves making such cheeky comments under his compound. But of course, more seriously, I can remind him when he was chair of PAFO, they were referred to as a Marok group because of what they perceived them to be. But yet they were a serious group of individuals. But most importantly, the critical point is, all jokes aside, the Constitution has set the standards for what you expect to be of a leader. You are claiming to be a democracy. Democracy is the will of the people. True. So who are you, Miss Kadebo, to sit in Radio 1 and say, yes, whereas the law says this, you are not required your riffraff? Who are you? If the people say we want a riffraff, that's the democracy that Honorable Tashiba is supposed to announce. True. So who sets another standard? That is, it's as simple as that. Yeah. That even very many professors may not be homogeneously allowed by everyone.
Many have actually lost election.
Engineer Badru Chigundu tried to stand in, I think, Kawempe Ward, and they said, you professors have lugezi. You can even lose to a village drunkard. But that is democracy. Regarding the issues of violence, I actually differ with the Honorable Tashobi and a very senior colleague. Since 2001, way before NOP and all, we've had the recurrent issue of security involvement in elections. In 2001, actually, that's when we had the famous Kalanga Action Plan. We had the Human Rights Watch report which said over 100 people were killed. The question of security involvement, and it has nothing to do with people provoking them. I don't think there's any political group who should be immune from committing crimes.
Yeah, no.
The essence of security should be pick out who is picking a crime and prosecute him. Problem comes when some political actors think security is biased in favor of a particular candidate, like we saw in the internal elections of NRM in Remiaga, where we had an unfortunate death caused by security. The people Perry was talking about who were shot in November 2020, as per the government's own report, 54 people shot by stray bullets. And the government report said only 11 were rioters, meaning the rest were innocent people like me and you, seated somewhere, and a stray bullet. So the issue of security involvement, many times there's this whole question of provocation, if there is any person who has provoked, actually provocation is not a crime under our laws. And I always ask, how do they provoke them? By their walking style, by their dressing style. But if provocation turns into a criminal activity, arrest them, charge them. But even you, journalists, you know what happened in Kawempe. Many of you suffered the brunt. At least whenever it was happening to political actors, they were saying, no, these ones are also provocative. So what did the poor journalists do to deserve being beaten? So for me, the issue is security should not be an active participant by a partisan participant. Should be in to enforce the law. And then, where did we reach where even the simplest of things, of course that is not for Honorable Tashobe to answer, it's for police, that even the simplest of things is the army which comes in. That even for 5 people to be arrested, you saw Honorable Nalukola on nomination day working with about 10 people and roughed up by a paramilitary group. So at what point does the army come in that for every civil activity, now it has to be the army? So for me, I think security involvement and of course, you know the law when it comes to guns at polling stations. Kawempe, we had a mamba, not even a pistol. We had a mamba just side by side. So for me, the whole point of security involvement, and I know many times Honorable Tashobe was talking about no person not threatening him in office. Kawempe North saw an RDC ordering a commissioner to come at a polling station, an RDC. So it has to be a bigger issue, and it's a political issue that many times some political players see this election as an operation.
All right. Let's hear from you, Charity, the issue of election violence.
So election violence has one major disadvantage, that the voter does not show up to vote. So the question of voter apathy is perpetuated by violence, or it comes from violence. Once there is a lot of violence, the voter can't show up, especially the female voter. They hate violence. And we've suffered, I think from the statistics I read in the court ruling of Nambi and Nalkola, the judge said we had about 199,000 registered voters, but of that number, only 28,000 voted, which was 14.4% of the voters. That tells you that most of our people just said, I'm not going to go and vote. Why? Because of the violence. And so it curtails the right to vote, which is enshrined in Article 59. As long as you're 18 years of age, you have that right to vote. And anything that obstructs you from exercising that right is a crime. So violence, in its nature, I think that since we have all these laws, actually, that can help us hold the culprits accountable for their acts, we should take them seriously. other than just condone. We see it happening. We've seen it happening in the primaries, and I have not seen any of the people who perpetuated violence in those primaries being brought to book. Kamuli, somebody died. Who has been held accountable for the death that happened in Kamuli? Who has been held accountable for the ones that died in Remiaga? Now that's the thing. We must see accountability for the deaths that happen, that people will then be confident about the process that is coming. We are going to have a nomination process. And I think, well, before we came on air, Electoral Commission had put out new dates. Again, the roadmap had changed a bit for local council nominations, divisions and cities. And they said the chairpersons, lord mayors, councillors will now be nominated between 3rd and 5th of September. But we are also going to have the nominations for members of parliament in October. Those processes there, you're going to see people with long trails of people escorting them. Then traffic jam is caused, then the bodabodas are abusing you, these big, gigantic words which I cannot say on radio. Now you're there.
Do you want to abuse us? Why would you say that?
Because the bodabodas like saying them. Why do they say them?
They say them when they abuse you.
Why do they say these gigantic words to innocent citizens who have nothing to do with their long trails of people who are there? They are driving. So we're going to see a lot of traffic disruptions. We're going to see long trails of people on the roads. And at the end of the day, there's going to be frustration, people exchanging words, and suddenly there will be violence because somebody will knock another one's car, then the other one is saying, why are you on me? You know, and people fracas in the road, chaos, down to degenerating into violence. But I like what Honorable Tashobia has said. That number one, it is our duty, all of us. Ideally, elections are supposed to help us to grow our democracy peacefully, not to grow our democracy violently. But the trend, unfortunately, and if you look at what we call the hotspots, we did those hotspots, I think, in 2016. I think, but before that period, I think you already had hotspots in 2011 and 2006. But in 2016, we did again what we said, we map out the places. Like Kasese is one of the hotspots, always, Bundi Bujo. Why? Because of the tribal clashes. Okay, the Bamba and the other team of people who know how to hate each other with pangas. As soon as one says, me, I am coming from this tribe, then the other tribe is up in arms. But you cannot all be winning an election. There must be a winner and a loser. So the question of violence will need to look more on those hotspots. Again, I don't know if the Electoral Commission has mapped them out again this time for the 2026 election. But if they haven't, I know that NIMID is trying to put out hotspots, the Netherlands Institute of Multi-Party Democracy. We, as civil society organizations, and one of the things which I had wanted Honorable Tashobia to allow us or to take back to the Electoral Commission is for him to allow us to have that citizen observation framework so that we keep looking up these issues to improve our democracy. The way to strengthen a democracy is to deal with the deficits. Things of shrinking civic space are coming about because we cannot work in a concerted way. We are now working in silos as individuals.
All right. We're moving towards the end of this show now. I want to give an opportunity to Honorable Tashobia. Honorable Tashobia will give us the closing remarks because time is not on our side. We want to hear the commitment from the Electoral Commission and also the assurances from Ugandans about their level of preparedness, but also what they really want Ugandans to know as we prepare for this particular election process. Honorable Tashobia.
Thank you so much, Anderson. First of all, let me first briefly respond to some of the points that have been raised on the matter of engagement, citizens' observations framework between civil society and the Electoral Commission. That one is welcome. We know we are conducting these elections not for ourselves. We are conducting them for Ugandans. So every Ugandan has a stake. So whoever has an idea that can improve the processes of having a free and fair elections, our doors are always open. Political parties, individuals, candidates, civil society. So Charity, please come and we have an engagement. Black spots, we would be very happy. Yes, we have a mechanism of identifying black spots through the number of engagements we have had, the elections we have had in different areas. We know which places have issues, but we'll be very happy to share the information that Charity and other stakeholders have in respect of black spots. But let me say once again that the matter of violence and how to conduct elections, as Charity I think pointed out, having a peaceful election is a responsibility of all Ugandans. What does that take to? What does it take to have a peaceful election? Incident-free election is by everybody observing the law.
All right.
Follow the law, follow the guidelines, follow the advice that we give as Electoral Commission, and at the end of the day, we'll have a smooth electoral process.
All right.
On the matter of preparedness, I want to say that we are ready.
Okay.
We are ready, and we want to promise the country that we are ready to deliver a free and fair election. But it will take the participation, the cooperation of all stakeholders, political parties, civil society organizations, everybody interested, every Ugandan, because at the end of the day, elections affect the life of all Ugandans.
All right, with that, we come to the end of Spectrum Extra. Thank you very much, dear panelists, for making time to be here. And thank you very much, dear listeners, for tuning in but contributing to this discussion. From me and the team here in studio, we want to wish you a fabulous weekend, but stay tuned to Radio 1 FM 90 for more quality programming.